Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Ad America. We are the U.S. Embassy's American Center here in Indonesia, and this is the place for everyone to experience more about American culture through our events. And hi, my name is Meriska Putri, one of the e-guide here. Are you still confused about whether to take the SAT or ACT? Today, we will learn about ACT with practical preparation strategies, study tips, and a realistic timeline to stay on track. Welcome everyone to the event ACT Preparation Strategies and SAT Comparison. Please give a big round of applause, everyone. And now, before we start, we have an online quiz for our online viewers. And the question is it true or false? The ACT consists of three main sections. If you know the answer, please submit it to our social media platform to get the live shout out at the end of this event. And right now, we are moving to the main event. For moderating today's event and leading the discussion, I will pass the stage to our moderator for today. She is an Education USA advisor. Please welcome Kak Caroline Darmanto.
Thank you, Meriska. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Hi, my name is Caroline. I am one of the Education USA advisors here based at An America. Anyone here has heard of Education USA before? Do you guys know who we are? Okay, I see one person. All right, so if you have never heard of Education USA before, please allow me to take a minute of your time to introduce you to what Education USA is. All right, so if you take a look at the slide behind me, jadi Education USA is a global network under the U.S. Department of State where we help students, especially Indonesian students in this case, who want to study in the U.S. Gitu deh, jadi teman-teman semua di sini, ada yang mau kuliah ke Amerika Serikat? Ada yang mau angkat tangannya? Oke, nah jadi kalau teman-teman semua mau kuliah ke Amerika Serikat terus nggak tahu mau mulai dari mana, apa yang harus dipersiapkan, bagaimana cara mempersiapkannya, mungkin informasi tentang visanya seperti apa, atau bagaimana nih apa yang harus dipersiapkan kalau misalkan mau berangkat ke US untuk memulai studinya, jangan takut-takut, jangan sungkan. We're available, we're here to help you guys out from the very beginning to the end, so we're gonna be with you every step of the way. All you need to do is scan the QR code behind me atau masuk ke Calendly-nya Education USA, and then kalian tinggal bikin aja appointment untuk ketemu dengan any of the advisors. Di At America sendiri ada saya Caroline, ada partner saya juga May, but Education USA is available not just at America. In fact, we have multiple centers throughout Indonesia. Ada di Medan, ada di Aceh, di Makassar, ada di Surabaya, di Malang, di Jakarta, ada di sini dan di US Embassy, lalu ada juga di Samarinda. Gitu. Nah, jadi teman-teman semua kalau kalian tidak tinggal, terutama teman-teman yang nonton secara online, so if you don't live in Indonesia, you don't have to worry about it at all because we're available to meet with you online juga, virtually through Zoom or Google Meet. Gitu. Jadi nggak usah nunggu banyak waktu lagi, scan the QR code behind me, lalu nanti bikin appointment dengan Education USA advisor-nya, ask any questions that you have about studying in the US and we'll be able to help you out. Okay, so without further ado, we're gonna be talking about ACT today. So last week we talked about SAT, bagaimana cara persiapannya, lalu mungkin ekspektasinya seperti apa saat nanti tes, lalu bagaimana cara improve skornya juga kalau misalkan nanti pertama kali tes ternyata kurang memuaskan hasilnya. So we're gonna learn more about about ACT today. So please help me welcome our speaker, Mr. Aditya Jain from the Princeton Review Singapore. Aditya, the stage is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me for this talk. Unfortunately, I'm not there today in person. Last week, I did the SAT presentation in person in Jakarta, but since I have some travel plans later today, we are doing this online. So I hope my presentation is visible. Can I can I get a quick confirmation? Are the slides visible there? Okay, super. These are the slides we'll be using for today's talk. So the focus today, guys, is on ACT. ACT is a little less understood than SAT because it's less popular. But again, as far as US universities are concerned, it's accepted equally at most universities. In fact, there is a table which converts SAT scores to ACT and vice versa, which you can freely get online. If you just Google it, convert SAT score to ACT or convert ACT score to SAT, you'll get this table online and you can convert your scores. Um, yeah, as we move forward, I'll give you some tips on which one might be better for you, or how to do the conversions, or how to measure yourself. So just feel free at the end of the presentation if you have any questions related to that. Just feel free and you can ask us as well. Thank you. Okay. So just before I get started, these are some, I thought I'll share some pictures. We've had a very strong and very positive relationship with Education USA. For example, in Singapore, we've been regular speakers. This is an event we held at the US Embassy in Singapore, where we talked about SAT, ACT, even graduate programs like GRE and GMAT. We've done this regularly. And as I mentioned, this is our presentation last week, last Saturday at America in Jakarta. So yeah, we've been doing this for a while. Okay, before we speak about SAT or ACT, I felt we should maybe put some background that if you're still undecided where you want to study, what are the courses you want to do, or so on and so forth, we can build some background and take it from there. So as we know today, the most dominant technology and the most important, future trend is artificial intelligence, AI. We hear about it all the time. All the newspapers, all the companies, they're all talking about AI, how to better utilize AI, what are the new AI initiatives they're taking, and so on and so forth. So I felt that if we want to look at what are the future trends in terms of jobs and opportunities for all of you while you take your decisions where to study, AI could be a very important factor to look at, because um, if you are looking at taking your decision on your career, maybe 10 years down the line, right? I mean, you still have 4 more years of undergraduate study, and then 3 to 4 years of career building. So, what are the technologies which will be very prevalent after 8 to 10 years where you can get good jobs and career opportunities? So, if you look at the last at least 4 years trend. So, I started by making a chart of companies which are of the biggest companies in the world. So, if you see the leftmost chart, it talks about the top 10 companies in the world in 2022. Now, the interesting part is if you look at the top 10 companies in 2022, uh, there are only four companies on the left side which were working on AI. And we're not even including Apple as an AI company. It's more as a product company, right? Uh, but when we move to 2024, there are seven companies. If we see on the middle chart, there are seven companies who are working in AI. And then when I work on the chart for 2026, we see on the extreme right side that there are eight out of the top 10 companies are now engaged in AI work. Uh, in fact, if you look at right now in the last 10 days, there are three really big American companies. Uh, I don't know if you've checked in the news lately, but three big American companies have come out with almost $1 trillion IPOs, which are basically SpaceX, Anthropic, and now OpenAI is the next one, which is working towards it. So again, two out of these three companies, if we leave out SpaceX, are hardcore AI companies. So the point I'm making being that as we move forward, AI is going to be one of the biggest trends in industry, and it's going to be the area which is going to generate the largest number and best paying jobs. So it could be for those of us who are looking for future positive career opportunities, it could be a field we could look at as a strong opportunity. Now, while we say that, let's also see that in the rightmost chart, which is top 10 largest companies in the world, out of these 10 companies, about I think 9 companies other than TSMC. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, other than TSMC, all the other companies are American companies. So definitely, if you are looking at creating a strong career opportunity for yourself, it's a great idea to look at US universities because that's where all the action, all the hot trends about AI are taking place. In fact, even space technology. Just yesterday, I was talking to an expert in Singapore on space technology, and he was saying that all the big companies in space technology are now based in California, with Los Angeles and that region having the maximum activity. So again, even though it is not AI, but again, space technology is a very futuristic opportunity. Another futuristic opportunity in which the maximum action is again in the California region in the US. So definitely, US could be a very important part of your decision making. Um, of course, keeping in mind all the other factors that you need to keep in mind while taking a decision to choose your university. But yeah, this could be a big part of what you do. Um, the next slide, we talk about the top 10 universities. Um, if you are looking at AI, so the globally top ranked universities for artificial intelligence are again in the US. So if you look at all these universities, these are all American, mostly Ivy League universities. So again, a good initial thought for those of you who are looking at STEM standing for science, technology, engineering, mathematics related courses. It could be a good idea to keep them in mind. Now let's move ahead to before we go into what is ACT, what is SAT, how they are correlated, let's look at why they're relevant, right? Because unless they are relevant for us, if we are looking at a future in technology, high tech, uh, space technology, AI that we talked about, then US is an important destination. Now, for US, let us look at what exactly they look at when they are, looking at students applying to US universities. What exactly they need from you. So, as we see in this slide, for the US, unlike UK, Australia, where 80% of the university decision is based on your grade 12 final marks or your or the GPA you get in the end of your grade 12. In the US, it's more about a holistic personality. So they look at various factors. What are your extracurriculars? What is your leadership? Of course, academics is the most important, as we see in the first point. Academics is 40% of your application decision. However, there are other things like extracurriculars and leadership, which contributes 30%, and then 30% on how you present your application to the university. So, if we were to go further in the details over here, the first 40% that we talk about, that is for academics, it's broken up into two main parts. One is your grades, that is your school performance. However, in the US universities, they will not look at your, excuse me, they will not look at your end of term grade 12 GPA. They'll primarily look at your performance across your entire high school. So your grade 9, 10, 11. Hopefully, you see an improving trend over there. Um, on the basis of your grade 11 and first half of your grade 12 performance, your school will give a predicted score to the universities, which is used as the proxy of your grade for them to take a decision. That's what the first bullet point there says. They also look at your class ranking. How well you are placed against the rest of your cohort, and then they look at how rigorous your curriculum is. So, have you taken just very easy subjects, or have you challenged yourself by taking difficult subjects? That's taken as a important parameter. Then if we move to the second 30%, they look at extracurriculars and leadership. So within extracurriculars, there are many things you could use to demonstrate your skill. You could do summer school, you could do research work, you could do internships, you could do projects with companies, honors courses. So there are many things that you could do to demonstrate that. However, you need to keep in mind that the extracurriculars you demonstrate should be in line with the course you are looking to do. It should not be completely different from each other. So, for example, if you're looking at AI, then definitely research work, especially that related to computing, will hold a lot of value. So, you need to keep that in mind while developing your extracurriculars. But for example, if you're going for a business course, then leadership is very important. Within your school, within your community, how you have demonstrated leadership, uh, that is taken very positively. Then the third part, if we look at the red colored point, which says application, essays, and interview. So yes, many of the Ivy Leagues now do interview because they want to see the face of the student who they are, admitting in their university. So they might look at. So the first, of course, important point is the application, which is the essays, letters of recommendation that you submit to them. Then the second part is the supplementary essays, which are part of your common app, and then interviews, which should be ideally in sync with the application that you have submitted. So these are the three important parts that the university will look at while checking your applications. Let's also look at an important point, that is test policy at universities. So as you shortlist the universities where you want to attend your undergraduate program, or you decide between US and other countries, uh, a very important part you should look at is the test requirement. So again, this is directly related to your requirement for SAT or ACT or even APs for that matter. Uh, there are three types of test rules basically. One is test blind. So these are universities which, even if you have taken the SAT or ACT, you cannot submit the score to them. These are universities that are test blind. Primarily, the biggest test blind group of universities is the UCs, University of California, and they have many campuses. That is Berkeley, LA, San Diego, so on and so forth. And that's a huge university system, right? So if you are applying to these universities, they are test blind. Please do not take the SAT or ACT because you cannot even submit your score to them. Then the second and largest chunk of universities are those that are test optional. Now, what is the meaning of test optional? It means universities where they give you an option. It's as straightforward as that. If you have a good score, you want to submit it, they will attach it to your application, and they will evaluate your application along with the test score. But if you don't have it, you can still apply. It's not that you will be rejected automatically. So that's what test optional means. However, when we come to test optional and we as Asians, as international students apply to top US universities, uh, it is recommended by most admission experts that you should submit a good score because, especially looking at the geopolitics and the situation at this stage, uh, the competition is extremely high for international students, at least at the top universities globally. So, every little advantage you get, you should grab it uh, because there are limited number of vacancies or openings for international students in the top universities, and there are many takers. So very brilliant students from all over the world, all over Asia. I don't want to name which countries, but we all know all the most brilliant students. They're all applying for Ivy League universities, and competition is very high. So if you can get that advantage, then please do get it. Also, very important part to see here is that scholarships at most test optional universities are only given to students who have submitted their SAT or ACT scores. So again, if you're looking at scholarships, even though scholarships are getting tougher and tougher for international students, but the criteria for that, wherever little opportunity you have, will be based on your SAT or ACT score. So these are the second category and the largest category, what we call the test optional universities. And then, of course, you have the third category of universities, that's the required test. Um, these are the universities where you cannot even apply if you do not have a SAT or ACT score. Now, the point here I'm making is please check what are the shortlisted universities you are applying to, and then decide whether you want to give the SAT or ACT, because you don't want to waste your time and effort preparing for and taking a test, doing well in it, if you are applying to test blind universities. In fact, just as an update, just last week, we got an update from our US head office that Columbia, which is an Ivy League university in the heart of New York City, they have reinstated the SAT as a compulsory requirement from the upcoming admission year. So again, here in the second bullet point, we have added a list of many universities which have reinstated the SAT in the last few years. But we should have added Columbia, but I already submitted the presentation to At America before the news came out from our US head office. Columbia University now also has a compulsory requirement for SAT if you are applying. But this is a list of many universities, including public universities like UT Austin, which is a top quality university for STEM courses, and of course, many private and Ivy League universities like Brown, Cornell, Georgetown, Harvard, that have made SAT compulsory over the last few years. Many times, if you research online and even through chat gpt or other uh, online methods, a lot of old data is there. So during COVID, let us understand, during COVID, a lot of universities uh, did not require the SAT, so they stopped asking for the SAT score, uh, due to which there is a perception amongst many applicants that SAT is not required in US universities, but a lot of that information you see online is during the COVID years when SAT or ACT were not even getting conducted. So the universities stopped asking for them because they still wanted to admit students, but SAT could not be conducted due to shutdown rules of during COVID years. So SAT requirement was diluted. Um, but I would recommend that instead of checking on Google, where a lot of random website information is given to you, it's better you go to the university website directly and check where you get the updated and latest information about the SAT requirement. And this is what you see because we've made this presentation based on the university websites. Just a quick word about Princeton Review because you should know who you are speaking with. So Princeton Review is one of the oldest test preparation companies in the world, and we were founded in 1981. So we are about, in fact, not even 40. We are 45 years old, and SAT, ACT, AP, GRE, GMAT preparation is the core of the work that we do. So if you just go online to Tokopedia or any bookstore and you look for SAT, ACT, AP, GRE, GMAT books, you'll mostly see Princeton Review as the most popular book. But more than that, what you see in the second slide on strategic approach is that we don't just teach you math and English, which are the core components of the SAT. Our master trainers who are at our US head office, we are headquartered in New York City in US. They take this SAT, ACT, GRE, GMAT. They take these exams every time they are conducted. So as a result of that, they are able to find out what are the key components of the of these tests, and based on their knowledge of English or math, they are able to find out what are the shortcuts or what are the strategic approaches that help students in getting a better score on these tests. So that's our legacy. That's our expertise. And these master trainers then train our teachers who are based in Singapore or other parts of Asia, so that our teachers in this region also teach strategies and techniques that are useful for you guys to get a better score on these tests. So our strategy is, in a lesser amount of time, we are able to give you uh, better success in these exams. So this is just like I mentioned earlier. These are just some of the books that our master trainers write and publish, which are extremely popular with students. But of course, like we say in the last line, but also more important is how we teach students. Okay, now we'll get to the main point of this presentation that we are here for. That is, what is the ACT? So the ACT is a standard test which tests you on two main components, that is English and math, and then they have a optional science section. So if you see, there are five sections here. Out of these five, three are compulsory. That is the first three: English, math, and reading. So reading is a form of English. So fundamentally, we can say they are testing you on English and math. There are two parts of English to one part of math, right? We can see here English and reading. The first and the third section pertain to English, and math is, of course, math. So the compulsory three sections, the score is 2 is to 3 English and 1 is to 3 math. Um, so in English, they ask you, in the first section, they ask you 50 questions and you have 35 minutes to answer them. Primarily, they are testing you in this section on vocabulary, and these are very quick. If you just do some quick math, these are 50 questions in 35 minutes. So you have about 42 to 43 seconds per question. In the second part, in the second section, that is mathematics test, they give you 45 questions in 50 minutes. So again, you have about 62 or 63 seconds per question. In the third section, they give you 36 questions in 40 minutes, which again, if you divide, it's about 65 seconds per question. And this is mostly they're testing you on reading comprehension. So there are passages. Um, for every passage, they will have three or four sets of questions. So you read a passage, you answer those set of questions, and then you move on to the next passage. That's how it goes. So these three sections, English, mathematics, and reading, form the core of your score. Each of these sections is scored from 1 to 36. And the total score that is reported is the average of these three sections. So, for example, if you get 32 in English, 33 in math, and 34 in reading, then your average is 33 for these three. Okay. Um, However, if you are a very strong science student, then you might want to take the fourth section, that is the optional science test. Also, if you are applying to a STEM course, that is science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and these kind of courses, in that case also you should be taking the science test because it highlights your strength in that. However, in the ACT science test, they will not test you on hardcore scientific principles and concepts like physics, theories, and very detailed numericals. It's basically a lot of reading material on science for which you can answer questions. But nonetheless, you should be giving it only if you're really good in science. And here also, you have 40 questions in 40 minutes, so exactly 1 minute per question. Um, if you do take the science test, then the average of these four sections between 1 to 36 is taken, and your score is reported to the universities that you decide to apply. The fifth section is a writing test in which you get one prompt. You have to, this is the only section in ACT which is not objective in nature. The first four are all multiple choice objective. They don't care about your working, which is why ACT is very different from how you tackle your questions in school. In school, whether you're following IB or Cambridge or Indonesia board in your school, you get marks for doing the working of every question, whether it's English or math. Even if 50% of your answer is correct, but the final answer is not correct, you will still get about 50 to 60% of marks for that question. For example, out of 5, you might still get 2 or 3 marks. However, in the SAT and ACT, both of them, ACT, especially the first 4 sections, they are purely objective. So you have to choose one out of 4 or 5 options that are given to you. They don't care if you have done 50% or 80% of the working correct. If your final answer is incorrect, you get 0. There is no negative marking in both these tests, but uh, the only grades and marks you get is for giving the right answer, not for the working. They don't even have access to your working. You just do it on a scratch paper, and then at the end of the test, you throw it away. Now, the fifth section, the writing test, is the only section where you give long subjective answers because that is an essay. So they give you 40 minutes to write an essay. However, this essay is scored separately and reported on a scale of 12. So if you have taken the fifth section, that is the essay, your score, for example, you will get a score which is 34 out of 36 on the first four sections, and then 8 out of 12 on your writing test. Okay, so 2 scores will be reported to your universities. But again, the science or writing you should take only if you are good at it and if you feel it will add value to your selection. These are some important points about the ACT that we would like to share with you. First of all, as I've already said, alternative to the SAT, equally accepted by US universities, and they convert the SAT score to ACT. That's why they can compare you with some other student. Test taking fee for the ACT is 183.5 US dollars if you do not take the writing section. If you take the first 3 or first 4 sections, it's $183.5. Or if you take it with the writing section, that is $211.5. So you can keep that in mind. As of today, ACT is available in paper pencil and online mode. However, they are doing away with paper pencil mode in most countries. I am not totally confident in Indonesia if they have only moved to online, but I think it is only online now in Indonesia. Um, I already said the next point. It's a multiple choice test. There is no negative marking. In Indonesia, they have, sorry for that typo over there, instead of 7, they have 6 test dates. That is February, April, June, uh, September, October, and December. So you can keep that in mind. If these align with your application decisions, you can choose these test dates. ACT, like I already said, has a science section. We can give mock tests to evaluate. So in case if you feel, now coming down to the most practical aspect, you might say that, okay, Princeton review is saying that ACT is different, SAT is different, but how do I know what is better for me? Princeton Review produces SAT and ACT mock tests. Mock test means simulated tests, which are exactly the same like the real ACT and SAT. We can provide these tests to you, all the people who are tuned into the At America session, and you can see what is the format of the test as well as what is your expected score on the SAT or ACT. You can even take both the tests and see which one you are better at, so that you can decide which one you should be taking. We can do that. There is a QR code at the end of this presentation which you can scan and leave your details in order to get that free test. As compared to the SAT, as you see in the next bullet point, the ACT gives you lesser time per question. Okay, so that is something you have to keep in mind while deciding. Other than taking the practice test, if you are someone who's very fast in answering your questions, then maybe ACT might work better for you. However, if you are someone who takes more time, deliberates on your questions, though let me also mention over here that even though SAT gives you more time per question, but the questions in SAT are more complicated. So if you are someone who is able to handle more complicated question, then SAT might work better for you. But if you're someone who likes to answer questions very quickly, easier questions more quickly, then you might want to go with the ACT. Yeah, and of course, if you take multiple tests, you can report the higher score. Okay, now in order to compare, let us look at the SAT structure. Uh, as compared to the ACT, the SAT is made up of two main modules. That is, two main sections, I would say. That is verbal, reading and writing. That is the first one in purple, if you see above. And the second one being math. Okay, so basically they are teaching you, they are testing you on English and math. English is also called verbal. It is also called reading and writing. It's all the same thing. It depends on what you are comfortable with using. Now, both these subjects, that is English and math, are divided into two modules. Okay, as you see over here, in English, that is the first section, the first module and the second module both have 27 questions and they give you 32 minutes. Now, as I was mentioning earlier, if you see here, as compared to the ACT where it was 1 minute or less than 1 minute per question, here you get 1 minute and 10 seconds per question for the English part. Okay. What they're testing you on, the topics on the right side, if you see, they're testing you on reading comprehension, grammar, and vocabulary. These are the three topics they are testing you on in the SAT in English. Okay. Uh, Based on your performance in this, your score will be between 200 to 800 points. Okay. 800 being the maximum, of course, and 200 being the lowest. So that's the score range. Now let's go to the next section, that is the math section. In math also, it is divided into two equal modules. Module 1 has 22 questions, 35 minutes. Module 2 also has 22 questions, 35 minutes. If you do the math again on this, it's about 1 minute 50 seconds per question. And what are they testing you on? In math, they are testing you on algebra, advanced math, geometry, problem solving, data analysis. These are the 5 topics that are the broader level of topics. In between these two, there is a 10-minute break. So again, if you add everything up, the time of module 1, module 2, 10-minute break, and then module 1, module 2 of math, it's 2 hours, 24 minutes is the run time for the SAT. Again, 800 maximum score in English, 800 maximum score in math. Total highest score is 1600. Out of this, if you get about 1450 plus, then it is considered a good score to apply for Ivy League and top universities. As compared to this, on the ACT, which I forgot to tell earlier, 34 out of 36 and above is considered a really good score for top universities. Another important part of SAT is it is an adaptive test. So between module 1 and module 2 of English as well as of math, the module 1 of both will give you a mixture of easy, medium, and hard questions. Okay, because the computer is checking if you are intelligent or not. If you get mostly right answers in the first module, then your second module will be harder module. But only if you get harder module can you reach a top score. Okay, so if you want, let's say, if you want 1450 out of 1600 for top universities, your score should be around 720, 730 out of 800 in each module. So only if you reach the harder second module, you can reach the score around 700 or above. Otherwise, if you are not doing well in module 1, then your second module will be easier module, which means your maximum score is around 550 or so, which means your total score is around 1100. That is not good enough for any top university. So please keep that in mind. It is an adaptive test and you need to reach the harder second module. This is a quick, some important bullet points for SAT again, which I'll not spend too much time because today's session is more about ACT. But again, it's a digital test, like I said, completely objective. In SAT, again, like in ACT, you at least have one writing section that's subjective. In SAT, everything is objective. There is no marks for subjectivity. Only if you get the right answer, you get marks for it. Like I said earlier, the running time of the test is 2 hours 14 minutes plus the break. 2 hours 14 minutes excluding the break plus 10 minutes break. That is 2 hours 24 minutes in all. SAT is an older test. It was conducted first time in 1904. So it's about 120 plus years old, which means it is highly credible. Um, in a lot of countries, whenever they want an extra test to assess students, they will first go to SAT because it is very trusted and very credible. For example, last year, Australian universities started asking for an additional test over and above the normal grades that they look at. Because Australia started having a lot of competition. Many people, due to geopolitics, moved from US to Australia. So, as a result, they started asking for the SAT as an addition to your grades. So, point being, it's a highly credible test. Any university, even for example, in Europe, Bocconi requires, it's one of the top Italian universities, requires a SAT for admission. For many students, Singapore, where we are, Singapore top universities like NUS, NTU, they require the SAT for foreign students who are applying. So, point being, it's a very credible test. Whenever a top university anywhere in the globe needs an external test, they look at the SAT. The syllabus in SAT and even in ACT is mostly grade 10 American syllabus, which is very similar to grade 10 Cambridge or Indonesian syllabus. So, yeah, students who are just starting grade 11 or middle of grade 11 is the best time to take the SAT, because in beginning of grade 12 you have to apply for US university, especially if you're applying EA, ED, early action, early decision, then it's a good time to take the test. Also because it's mostly grade 10 syllabus, so all that content is still fresh in your mind. Um, in SAT, you are allowed to use a scientific calculator throughout the math section. You can bring your own calculator. There is a list of calculators that are allowed, or they have an inbuilt calculator which is called the Desmos. You can use that calculator also in order to do your calculation for math. Then, as I already said, the next bullet point says it's an adaptive test. So the difficulty of the test changes according to your performance. Again, in the next point, sorry, there is a typo there. It is not conducted 8 times. It is in Indonesia. It is conducted 7 times a year. That is March, May, June. These three tests in the first half of the year, and then 4 tests in the second half. That is August, October, November, and December. So the upcoming tests for this year, for those of you who are interested for SAT, are August, October, November, December. Test fee of SAT is little lower as compared to ACT. It's $121 US dollars for foreign students. Again, just like ACT, there is no negative marking in SAT. So it's a good idea to not to leave questions. So even if, for example, when we teach SAT students, we teach a technique known as elimination. So even if you are able to, out of four, eliminate one or two options and then you just take a guess and move forward, that's a good strategy in SAT to get a good score. And the last bullet point is the company that conducts the SAT, that is collegeboard.com. So in case you want to register for the SAT, this is where you need to go. Right. Okay, here we provide a table which helps you compare between the SAT and ACT, just as a quick reference. So the main differences are the total time. First of all, the total time in SAT is 2 hours 14 minutes. That's the run time plus 10 minutes break. In ACT, for the three compulsory sections, it's 2 hours 5 minutes. And then there is 40 minutes for science if you are taking that test, and 40 minutes for the writing section if you are taking that test as well. Then the second point, time per question, that I already mentioned, is a little more in SAT as compared to the ACT. ACT is quicker, lesser time per section. Format in SAT, it is multi-stage adaptive. So in both the sections, You get first an easy medium module, and then based on your performance, the second one becomes harder or it becomes easier on your performance. The ACT, on the other hand, if we compare, it's linear. It has a fixed format. There is no change in the type of questions or difficulty level if you are taking the ACT. SAT lately has become a bigger test globally. So there are 1.7 million test takers in SAT as compared to 1.3 million for the ACT. Oops, sorry. Yeah. As compared to 1.7 million for the ACT. Um, the topics, as we've already talked about, reading and writing, SAT tests you on craft and structure, expression of ideas, grammar, and ACT tests you on English conventions. That's mostly grammar again, punctuation, knowledge of language, and reading comprehension. And these are the math topics that I talked about earlier, as compared to SAT, which I already mentioned: algebra, advanced math, data analysis, geometry, and trigonometry. ACT also includes some pre-algebra uh, and intermediate algebra. There is plane geometry, coordinate geometry, and even trigonometry. Dates, as I already mentioned, 7 times for the SAT and 6 times for the ACT. Okay, based on our experience, we would like to share some important tips because, like you already know, we are Princeton Review is the leader for SAT and ACT prep in US, which has about 1 million students for both. So our experience is extensive because we meet many students to prepare them for the ACT. So these are all our experiences based on our work with many students. So first and foremost, you might do a lot of research. You might check a lot of data and information online, which tells you about the SAT and ACT. But we always say that practical is better than theory. So instead of checking and going on researching, the best way to decide which test is better for you, if you have a doubt, take both SAT and ACT. Uh, then let's see which one you are getting a better score at. And based on that, you should be able to uh, take that test. Um, and as I said earlier, we have a table which converts SAT score to ACT and vice versa. Then second important point is analyze your starting score. So once you've decided, let us say you decided I want to go ahead with ACT, since we're talking more about ACT today, then based on your performance in the test, and I'll show you some slides in future which show you slides ahead which show you your performance on each and every topic of the ACT. So make a map of it, make a list of the topics in which you are weak so that you are able to work specifically on those topics. I mean, students who come to us, our teachers analyze their starting score and their weak areas, and then we make a course plan to help them only in those topics. So they are not wasting time studying many topics and wasting their time. They are only specifically studying those topics where they are weak. Then, very important, assess your target score. So, for example, if your target score is 34 because you want to apply to Ivy League universities, then your plan for study will be different from someone who's targeting a score of 30. Let's say your starting score is 25. If you want to reach 33, then your study plan is different as compared to someone who's planning to reach 30. Because, of course, you have to do more work. The higher your target score, the more work you have to do. And also keep in mind your admission timeline. So let us say your application timeline is 1st November 2026. Then you have to take the ACT just before that, maybe in September, as I shared earlier. So do these two basic homework in order to make your study plan. Then very important, and it seems very intuitive, but it's surprising how many students are not able to do that. You have to allocate study time for lessons, because often what we see is that students get very glamorized by SAT and ACT. They start off with a very enthusiastic approach, but slowly as they start doing their schoolwork and other sports and other extracurriculars, which are more in your face because you keep encountering them on a day-to-day basis when you go to school, they lose track of their SAT or ACT. However, if you, in a very disciplined manner, you allocate study time for your lessons and practice for your ACT or SAT test date, then you will be able to stay focused on that. Take regular practice tests. So, just like you take the first practice test to see your weak areas, after every 15 to 20 days, we require our students to take the test all over again. So you can see if you started at 25 on ACT, have you moved to 26, 27, 28? If you see a progressive trend, then it's good. If you don't see a progressive trend, it means there is a problem and you have to practice more or follow your teacher in a better manner. Then stick to your course plan. If you whether you go for group classes or you go for one-on-one classes, it's important to stick to your course plan in order to achieve your score. Other focus areas which are more generalized is like I already mentioned, accuracy and speed of solving is more important in these tests rather than doing the complete working like you do in school, because they are only testing your final answer. They don't care about your working. Uh, Another very important thing we've seen is that, as I mentioned earlier, you have to regularly revisit your internal motivation. So, as I said earlier, students get very glamorized that I want to go to US, I want to go to top universities. They sign up for SAT preparation or ACT preparation, but somewhere due to their day-to-day routine or distractions with other things, they lose their motivation and they lose touch with the course. So it's very important to keep on motivating yourself that, okay, if I don't get a good SAT or ACT score, I will not be able to get to my top universities. Then take ownership of your work. So in any activity you do, whether it's SAT, ACT preparation, or a sport or any other extracurricular, you have to take ownership. The teacher can help you to a certain level, but you have to be responsible. We always say that preparation for the SAT and ACT is like preparing for a marathon, not a sprint. It's important to work for 2 to 3 months on a continuous basis, 2 to 3 hours per day, rather than feeling that I will work only for 1 week, I'll work 10 hours a day and I will improve. Because a lot of the topics in SAT and ACT are basic topics up to grade 10. So you already know those topics, but somewhere you have to keep on practicing them on a continuous basis so that you are able to uh, move away from your basic thinking of doing long solutions, and you are able to move to the structure of the test, and of course make time for it. Without that, nothing is going to happen. There are some positive scores that we have seen over time of SAT, and there are for ACT also. Like I said earlier, on our website, we regularly keep tracking how the score is moving up. And this is a similar tracker for ACT. Like you see here, one of our students who is preparing our portal when they take the test on our website, it gives them the score. For example, the student has got 28 out of 34, 28 out of 36 in English, 29 in math, and 13 reading. So 28, 29, 30 out of 36. So the average of these three is 29. Now this is the starting score for the student. And of course, as they move forward, the system will keep telling them how much they're improving. This is the kind of breakup the system gives. So it will tell you how many, so as you can see, commas, it's down to that level of detail. Where the comma is not properly mentioned, there is a type of question for that. So the student has got 2 out of 4 correct in that. In apostrophes, the student has got 1 out of 1 correct. For example, in conjunctions, which is also part of grammar, the student has got 2 out of 3 correct. So the point I'm making is that this kind of score report, which our system generates, tells you exactly which are the topics in which you are weak. So you can focus on those areas where you are weak and improve on that to get a top score. Then again, this is for math. So for example, we see for the student is weak in functions. So that is an area where they need to improve. In right triangles, which is again a part of geometry, they are weak in matrices. So again, the point being that the system gives each and every level of detail for the student to be able to focus and improve on the topics. There's a color coded heat map. So this is color coding which the system gives you. The darker the color, the higher the accuracy that you have shown. For lighter colors, that is blue and gray, it means you are making more mistakes in those topics. So you are able to get all this information for each and every test you take. Thank you. That's it from my side. I hope we are on time. And if you want any of the support from our side, you want to book a free test, you want to book a free appointment to discuss about whether you want to take SAT or ACT or how to take the SAT or ACT, you can use any of these, you know, QR codes, and you can reach out to us. You can just mention at America in the code that they asked you there, and our experts will get in touch with you to help you with this. Thank you. That's all from my side. I'll leave this on if someone wants to scan it.
All right. Thank you so much, Aditya. That was a very comprehensive presentation, just like last week. So we're gonna move to the Q&A session now and the discussion. So we're gonna open up the question from our audience here and also our audience online. So before we go to the Q&A session, I do have a couple of questions that I want to ask you. So you mentioned that the ACT questions are more complicated compared to SAT, but how much more complicated are the questions?
It's actually, sorry, the other way around. I'm sorry if I said it wrong. The SAT questions give you more time and hence they are a little more complicated. So I'll give you an example. For example, the comprehension, the reading comprehension on the SAT, uh, there is a lot more reading between the lines. So there is the what is the purpose of the writer? What is the thought behind the writer? What is the conclusion of this passage? These are the kind of questions the SAT will test you on. Whereas in ACT, it'll be more direct questions. So you read the passage and you answer the question that is related to the information provided in the passage. So it's more direct. In math also, if I were to take the example, the questions will be uh, total calculation but more mental math. So you also need to sometimes figure out whether or not you need to use the calculator, because sometimes if you have only 45 seconds per question, just pulling out your calculator, punching in the questions and getting the answer and writing it there might need about 35 to 40 seconds. Whereas if you are quick on mental math on ACT, you can easily answer it within 20-25 seconds. And what happens in these competitive exams is that sometimes if you can save those 15 to 20 seconds per question, then when you reach the more difficult questions, it gives you much more time. So time saving tactics on easier questions are a very, very important strategic part of preparing for and taking these tests.
I see, I see. So it really is a matter of not, I guess it's less of a which test is better, but which test suits the student better.
Exactly. That's
Okay.
that's what we always say, which is why we always recommend students to take both the tests, instead of just thinking too much, just take both the tests, because if without any preparation you are able to do, for example, ACT better, then definitely with preparation also you will do ACT better or vice versa.
All right.
That's your inherent skill.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Now, my second question is that, so SAT is more popular in Indonesia, right? So I wonder, how do we find the test centers for ACT? Because I imagine there will be less test centers for ACT. And what if a student lives in a city or maybe in an area where there's no ACT test center?
That's a good one, and you're absolutely right. That's what we have noticed in Indonesia for students who come to us, as well as in Singapore. Fortunately or unfortunately, because the SAT is more popular and more students want to take the SAT, most of the big schools work at SAT test centers, SAT test centers. Whereas for ACT, because there are lesser students who want to take the test, you will get lesser number of test centers. That's just plain economics, unfortunately. So, for example, in Jakarta, there's only one ACT test center, which is the Jakarta Intercultural School.
Okay.
Similarly, in Surabaya and Bali, there are only one ACT test centers. Now, unfortunately, if these test centers are far away from your house, you still have to go to that test center and take the test. There is no other repercussion. You cannot take
I
these tests
see.
from your house. Even though you have to take another important point I'd like to highlight here is that even though you have to take your own laptop or your own tablet to take the test and you have to download their software to take the test, but you cannot take it from home. You
I
have to
see.
go to the test center at a fixed date. Those are those 6 and 7 dates. And there will be a supervisor who will make sure that you have installed the software, that you're not cheating, and then the test is conducted. So you have to take the test at the test center. There are, just like I talked about ACT, one test center in every city. For Jakarta, only for SAT, there are like 8 to 10 test centers. So obviously you get more choice. You can choose a test center which is closer to you. Maybe if your own school is giving the test, you are very comfortable because you know the school, you know on the last day, if you have to reach at 8 a.m., you will not be suddenly rushing at the last minute because you know how to get there and how to navigate your way. So those things are also very important on the last test day.
I see.
I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, to answer your question, there are more test takers for SAT, so there are more test centers and the bigger schools.
I see. Okay. So it's worth noting that if, I guess this is for everyone who is watching at home also. So if you don't live in Jakarta and you want to take the the ACT test, it's worth noting that maybe you need to plan better because then you might have to travel to Jakarta to take the test. All right. So let's open the Q&A session for our audience here on site. Anyone here want to ask a question? Okay, so we have one. Okay, please introduce yourself before I ask a question.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Hello, my name is Aifa. And actually, I have two questions. So the first one is for ACT or SAT, they do both have English sections. So, and it's required for most of universities in the US. So, do we still require the English proficiency test like TOEFL or IELTS, or we don't need those English proficiency tests? And the second question is, I've heard that ACT is only for undergraduate applications. So if I want to apply for master, their GRE test, is it true or not? Yeah.
All right,
those
great
are my
questions. All right, so the first question is if someone has already taken the SAT or ACT, does that person need to take another English proficiency test?
Thank you. Thanks, Saifa. Very good questions. So, yes, the answer to your first question is that the IELTS and TOEFL, English proficiency test, or even the PTE and Duolingo, there are many tests now, depends on if what your university is accepting. These English tests are testing whether you are able to speak English at a level where a native English speaking country requires. So, if you're moving from a non native English speaking country to a native English speaking country, whether you can communicate with people over there. They test you, like the SAT, as I already mentioned, tests you only on written English skills, both the SAT and ACT. So it's writing and reading to some extent. The English proficiency tests test you on both written as well as oral English skills. So all of them have 4 sections: reading and writing, which already the SAT and ACT have, but they also have listening and speaking, which is oral communication. And when you go to a native English speaking country, day to day on the roads or in your campus or with your teachers, you will have to communicate in oral English also, which is not tested by SAT or ACT. So most universities in US as well as other native English speaking countries like Australia, Canada, UK, even Singapore, they will need the IELTS, TOEFL, or other English language test. However, you have to keep in mind your university that you're applying. Certain universities give you a waiver. If you have SAT score above a certain level in English sections, SAT or ACT, or if in your grade 11 and 12 in English, you have achieved a score above a certain level. Some universities will give you a waiver based on that, but not all. We cannot talk for the universities because they have their own decision making, but you might be able to get a waiver, you might not. That's the answer. Okay.
All right, thank you. So the second question is about the master's level standardized test, because ACT and ACT are for undergrad. So what do students need for master's level?
Yes. So that's a good question. So yes, SAT and ACT are for undergraduate study in the US or other countries that you might be applying. For masters, or even in fact, I'll just extend it for students who might be interested, even for PhD, there is a different set of set of tests. They are called the GRE, which is the Graduate Record Exam, or the GMAT, which is the Graduate Management Aptitude Test. Both these tests starts with G, which means graduate. So these are the tests used for graduate or master's applications or even PhD applications in the US. Normally, the GMAT is if you are applying for a management MBA or Masters in Management MS course. It could be Masters in Business, Masters in Accounting, Masters in Finance. That is mostly the GMAT. But the GRE is a more universal test. For all masters, the GRE is accepted, or PhD, the GRE is accepted. So if you want to do masters in, let's say, engineering, masters in science, masters in humanities, anything, it is the GRE which is accepted. A lot of masters in management universities or MBA also accept the GRE in lieu of GMAT. So what we recommend is students who are confused, I might do masters in engineering, or I might do masters in management, or I might do MBA, then better to take the GRE, because about 75% of MBA or B schools accept the GRE in lieu of GMAT. So you can take the test, and all these tests, including SAT, ACT, GRE, GMAT, once you take the test, they're valid officially for 5 years. So you can take the test and later decide which course you want to apply. I hope this answers your question.
Thank you
That's
very
really
much.
okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, any more questions from our audience here? Okay, one more. Please wait for the microphone and then introduce yourself first.
Hello, I am Pradana. So, what is the minimum value required for SAT in Ivy League?
Okay, so the minimum score for Ivy League schools.
Yeah, SAT.
SAT.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Pradana. So as my slide earlier mentioned, there are multiple factors for Ivy League. Out of the 40%, SAT score or ACT score for that matter is just one of the four components, which means it is one component out of many out of four components. So we can never say that this is the exact score needed for an Ivy League school. In our experience of working with thousands of students, there are students even at 1570, 1580 that are rejected by top Ivy League schools. And there are students even at 1400 who are accepted because the student with 1400 had like a 45 on 45 in IB, or they had amazing extracurriculars. For example, we had a student who published a book that was recommended by the top leaders in Singapore, or someone who had a great community outreach activity. So universities look at many things, including your essay. There are students who have gone through tremendous hardship in life, so their essays reflect a huge amount of motivation to succeed in life, and American universities love that. They love students with a great story in life, with hardship, who are committed and determined to succeed. So I would, to answer your question, unfortunately, I don't have a straightforward objective answer because, as I said earlier, UK and Australia universities, yes, they publish the scores needed in school as well as your entrance test. So, for example, they have different entrance tests like UCAT, ISAT for medicine or LNAT for law. They have specific scores, but US universities do not prescribe specific scores. However, in order to have a very strong chance in Ivy Leagues, as I mentioned earlier, 1450 on SAT and 34 plus on ACT is considered relatively safe, but all your other parameters need to be strong.
I think to add to that is that U.S. universities don't look at one thing strictly to get accepted to their university. So they look at everything holistically, which means even if you have a good ACT score or SAT score, but your grades are very low and maybe you don't have a good letter of recommendation, then it's a little hard for you to get accepted to that university, right? So you have to make sure that your profile, that your application is good holistically. All right. So I hope that answers
Yeah,
your question.
that's okay.
All right. Thank you. Any more questions from our audience here? No? If not, I do have a follow-up question to that. So is there, do you know if there's a, I guess, an average score that an international student get when they first take the SAT or ACT test?
Uh, so, we get students on both sides of the spectrum. There are students. So, for example, there are some students which we see who have gone through the very rigorous local curriculum and top national schools, both in Indonesia as well as Singapore, who even the first time they take a practice test, they get like a 1400 plus. Um, and these students, if they go to give the actual SAT first time, they will get a top score. But most students from who are not from the international curriculum, what we've noticed is that their expectation on the SAT is very high. Their expectation is to get at least 1550 plus. Also, because in most cases, I don't want to generalize, but in many cases, the local curriculum focuses purely on academics. So their extracurriculars are not so strong, in which case they look at the SAT, getting a great score on the SAT as their primary goal to get a top university. Uh, However, there are students who have spent a lot of time doing projects. There are students who make apps or even market those apps. They have a lot of real world skills who are not so strong on the test, but they are very strong on other activities and other parts of their application. So it's both ways. Unfortunately, there is no single score which I can talk about.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So we can take one last question from our audience here. Anyone here want to ask a last question? No? All right. If not, I do have one last question for you, Aditya, before we wrap up the event. So the Princeton Review published books on many tests, right? But how efficient are the books, or do you think that students need to take extra preparation classes from you guys also?
So, as I mentioned earlier, our teachers take the test every time. Uh, the ones in the US who write the books, they are called our master teachers, and they then train our teachers in Southeast Asia with those techniques so that when you take the test, when our students take the test, they don't have to do the same experimentation of taking a test once, twice, three times. Normally, our students take the test first time and get their target score because even while they are preparing, they are taking exactly the same test 10, 12 times. So they've already done all their experimentation and they've made the mistakes on the practice test. So on the real test, they can just go on that. They know what to expect, what will be the sections, what will be the timing like, and they don't need to do that experimentation. However, I will not say that all students need preparation. It depends. We are happy to give a free test to students who are here and who are listening into this broadcast. You can take the test, you can see your analysis as I showed on the slides. Our teachers can give you some tips for free. What are the topics you need to work on to improve? If you feel you are able to take it, then it's fine. If you don't, then you're more than welcome to take our classes with the teachers to improve upon it, because they have taken the test earlier. Even our teachers in Singapore take the test at least once a year. So they have the experience of what to do and to guide you.
All right, thank you so much, Aditya. I truly appreciate your time. I know it's a Saturday morning, so thank you so much. And I wish you a great travel, because I believe you're traveling after this, right? And I hope to see you again very soon. And Mariska, the stage is
Thank you.
yours.
Thank you so much. Can we
Thank
give a
you.
big
Thanks,
round of
everyone.
applause, everyone? Yes, thank you so much for our moderator, Kak Caroline from Education USA. And thank you so much for our amazing speaker who joining us online from Singapore. And yes, thank you so much everyone for attending today's event. And yes, that marks the end of our event for today. I hope everyone get valuable insight from today's discussions and know more about ACD and what is the difference with the SAT. And yes, earlier in this event, we have an online quiz for our online viewers. And the question was, is it true or false? The ACT consists of three main sections. And the correct answer to it is true. The ACT is designed to evaluate college readiness through three main sections: English, Math, and Reading. And shout out to at Agatha Michelle from Instagram to answer it correctly. Lastly, everyone, to keep update about our upcoming events, you can follow our social media. We are at Instagram, Facebook, X, and YouTube, AT America. With that, thank you so much. My name is Mayriska Putri, and see you on the next at America events. Bye, everyone.